you said the current CEO, as if like it's a temporary position.
Sorry about that.
It's in transition. No. So I was an ETower alum since my first semester here at Babson, and it was funny. It's funny to see how much like ETower and stuff have changed over the years. Like, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations, like mission-first organizations. I think I heard in this group. Whereas I think when I was here, pretty much every one of them was like purely capitalistically focused on generating money. So it's nice to see that like there's a lot more diversity. There's definitely a lot more women in ETower, which is awesome. I remember when we were here, it was like maybe 2 women, and we were always like, we need to find more women. And at least Babson's also becoming like a little bit more like 50-50, which is great too. So it definitely adds a big dynamic, a different dynamic to the business. I mean, we, on my executive team, basically a third of the team is female, and I can say that provides like a very different insight into what we're doing, and it's just like there's a different way of approaching things, and it also brings a different dynamic to conversations. Which I think a lot of people tend to forget about or don't put as much value on as they really should. I don't know where to start, but my journey here, getting into ETower was super competitive. So they would bring in only 2 freshmen. You had to apply before you came into Babson, and then go through, it was like 3 months of interviews, testing, like selection, and they select basically 2 new freshmen to come in. They'd also select 2 individuals from one of the upper class. It was survivor in a sense. So we literally voted out 2 people every semester. Whoever was either having a business that was like the weakest or lowest performing, or whoever we didn't feel was really contributing strong enough to the ETower organization. So it's funny to see how things have changed since. That meant very weird dynamics too, because it became very political. ETower, it was all about both having to have a business that was running and successful while also maintaining some dynamic of politics among the community to ensure that you didn't get voted out, even if your business maybe wasn't doing the best at that time. It also meant like for a unique dynamic on campus. Like I remember ETower for a while when I was here was like this relatively new thing that was starting to get a lot of like publicity and hype. The year I was here, the 4 years I was here, of that group, I think like 8 or 10 of us all had multi-million-dollar businesses before we graduated. So it was like lots of press and media, but I think it got to some of our heads, which is why you guys have gone through so many hurdles and headaches of trying to get like reestablished. I take some of that blame on my end, but ETower is an amazing thing. It was my family, like my closest friends. When you're in the trenches together, building something, there's very few other people who I find you can truly relate to in life, especially as your ventures start taking off and they go from being a concept, an idea, a project, into a full-fledged company that has really, really high highs and super low lows. That sort of like constant fluctuation on your heartstrings, emotion, work, life, like you lose friends, you lose family members, you make a lot of sacrifices. You find as you guys are going to like continue to grow, get older, graduate, that people's ability to relate to that is a lot more difficult. You'll find it's very easy to relate to everyone here. When you leave this bubble that is Babson and you enter the rest of the world, you'll see that like most people aren't like you. And case in point, so often when I run into people, whether it's VCs, CEOs, I mean, they're like, oh, you're a Babson guy, that makes sense, like entrepreneur. And so many of the companies I know that are successful in Boston or around the area were my friends who are at Babson or were other Babson grads. I mean, it's insane the number of Babson individuals I run into on an ongoing basis. And that said, I would really highly encourage everyone to go out and network and meet people who are here. My business partner and I, so Dinesh and I founded ThinkLight while we were here at Babson. It was basically build software to automate how you analyze, design, and manufacture large-scale lighting systems for commercial environments. What that means is we basically would incept a lot of data, 3D render properties, 3D render the layout, like using machine to optimize like the lighting layout, the product, the fixture, and you could kind of tune it as to what you wanted to get out of it, whether it was like increased savings, increased aesthetic, or increased like light utility. What was cool was like the business grew very quickly while we were here, so we went from my dorm room to about 8.5 million in recurring revenue by the time we graduated. So certainly a wild ride. I went to as many classes as I could. I highly recommend all of you guys do the same, because the professors and the network I built at Babson is continued to like pay dividends. I mean, I meet up with professors still, probably quarterly, which sounds like crazy and a lot, but I do. I mean, David and I both know a certain professor, Joel, who I see all the time. I run into. He knows all of my friends. Like, we connect in so many different ways. I know, Julia Kohina over in the accounting department here in finance. I basically, I'm constantly running into professors who I owe a lot to, because I wouldn't be where I am without it. And don't forget that. I mean, it's very easy to take for granted what you guys have going here because it's the only thing you know. But the more you start talking to your friends who are in other schools, and the more as you get closer to graduation, you kind of see where you're at and where they're at, you start to realize that like you really had something going good here, and the professors are of a different caliber. Most other schools are based on philosophy or like textual knowledge. My law professor was an amazing attorney who helped me draft some of the first contracts for ThinkLight. My marketing professor had designed marketing campaigns for Coca-Cola and other companies and worked with us on some of our materials. Yeah, there's just a tremendous opportunity here. But so maybe talk the journey, or is there certain questions you had?
More the journey. That's usually what we focus on.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, Dinesh and I, we met because we weren't dorming together initially. He was a year behind me, and we met because everyone told us we should meet because we were the two crazy kids who didn't sleep. That was literally what I was known for, and I'm still known for that probably today, is being the kind of guy that like, I'd be in that room when you went to bed, and I'd be there in the morning when you went to class, and you'd wonder whether I slept in the interim. And oftentimes I didn't. I was pulling a lot of all-nighters and then crashing, and then pulling more all-nighters and crashing. But I was like so determined to get my business off the ground, and truly that's what it takes. I think you're far more likely to succeed by outworking other people than you are to succeed by out-intellecting other people. There's just a lot of smart people out there, you'll realize, and that the difference is not having a better idea or better technology. It's like you took that technology or that idea a lot farther than they did, really just because you put in more hours. And we used to calculate that like we'd work about 120 hours a week. So you do the math, that leaves you about 4 to 6 hours a day during the week and about 8 hours to 10 hours on the weekends to kind of catch up. But then literally everything else was just working. And if you do that, you basically are working like 3 full-time jobs, or call it 2 full-time jobs because we were also going to school. And that means that every year you've done 2 years worth of work, and eventually by the time you're on your second year, you've got 4 years. And that's the turning, that's the chasm that you cross where, having 4 years of experience, interactions, connections, tests and failures, iterations, that's where you're actually gonna be able to see your company stand out against someone else's. And so I'm sitting here, I just seen a commercial about like ugly light bulbs, and was doing some calculations on my computer about what the savings could be. And in comes walking this guy who's talking a mile a minute. I'd never met him before, but it's like, are you Dinesh? And he's like, yeah. Are you Enrico by chance? It's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, everyone tells me I should meet you because you don't sleep. And he was like, oh, I mean, you too, same sort of thing. And we both had like a couple side businesses going that, were making us some money on the side. But we sat down, I kind of pitched him, the basis of the idea. The two of us, in our personal fashion, pulled an all-nighter together in there. And the next morning I remember looking at each other and being like, do you have classes today? Or like, are you supposed to be like, yeah. Are you going? No, let's keep going. And we just kept going on this project, and 3 days, basically 3 or 4 days later, we had fleshed out what the value prop was going to be, like a basis of what the software schematic would be, kind of like some early marketing materials, got the business like I mean, we just like went through everything, threw up a website, the whole bit, and then the next big thing was just sell. So the key to success is literally start selling a product before you have the product, and see if you can get money. People pay you before you deliver a product, because that says you're either solving a problem that people have, and once you have money, then you can start applying it to like making the thing that you are promising to deliver, or start getting the feedback from the people who are your first clients as to like what's working, what's not working, what needs to be better, and then that's where you kind of like ask for forgiveness and go the extra mile and do whatever it takes to like make it successful. Because we had a few projects that we did early on that basically totally blew up, but we went like to the nth degree to like fix them and make them better. And part of that was, we both like this one project in Wayland. There was like this like tennis club. The lighting that we had designed came, and we realized like we had made some mistakes on the fixture, and like the refraction wasn't right, and it wasn't like dispersing it the way we needed, and just a whole lot of headaches. And basically we had now spent all this money on making this product that wasn't gonna do what we needed to do, and we only had like enough margin to like we didn't have enough margin to basically redo it or build the newer thing that we needed to. And so the client ended up paying us upfront for the rest of the contract. It was like a 4 or 5 year contract, and he paid the first year upfront, and then the rest was supposed to be payments, paid the next 4 years upfront so that we could go make the product. And then we even did things like we produced all these like marketing materials and banners to basically that they could like put in the front of their location that would say like, hey, the lighting is like a little dimmer than normal. It's because we're doing this big energy efficient upgrades, saving it's translating to like X benefit on the environment, so on and so forth. And then when we finally did come out with the new product, we patented it and we named it after that guy. So his name was Laurie Hamill. We called it the Hamill Light, and he was a big like all-star in the tennis space. So what do you think naming a product after a guy who's well recognized in the space is going to do? It's going to both give us credibility, but it's also going to mean he's going to go out and sell it to all his friends and be like, you should be using my light in your locations. And so it was great, got us a lot of sales. Business was growing, great. And then we literally ran out of money. So we're doing a few $1 million a year at this point, run out of cash. And literally, this is how I got into accounting, was we just had shitty bookkeeping. Like, we hired people, they were supposed to be doing their job. They couldn't get the data in fast enough. So much of like when a business is moving fast, or even if it's not, if it's like about to, just being able to see the insights and kind of get some sort of understanding about what's coming down the road, or how do you stand on gross margin, or what's your cost of acquisition, or like what's your BOM to get product here. I mean, there's just so many variables that if you don't really have them all dialed in, you find out quarters later or a year at the end of the year that you've actually been selling things at a loss, or that the margin on the product is great, but it costs you like 4 times that to actually acquire a client when you figure out the cost of you selling. Because you selling and not paying yourself anything only works when you're willing to sell and not pay yourself anything. But to build a business, you need to hire people and pay them. So if you haven't factored into your margin the cost of a sales rep, the cost of marketing, the cost of ads, the cost of someone managing marketing and social media, the cost of someone actually managing the business, and can you then throw off enough margin to make a profit? Like, those things you usually don't think about when you're running the business, because you run it like it's your bank account. So money comes in, it's in the bank account, yay, I'm making money, but then it goes right out, and you start realizing that you kind of like sign up for things that you owe payments on later, and that what you have in your account isn't actually there anymore. It's like already dedicated or owed. So anyway, we were growing fast. We had all the accounting complexity in the world, and we didn't have a good enough pulse on our cash. Now, fortunately, our clients were blue chip companies like AT&T, Kodak, IKEA, etc., government highways and projects. So we were able to go to a bank and get a $2 million line based on like the receivables we had coming in, and restart the engine. But it was like so painful. And then the business grew successfully. We ended up getting acquired, and then Dinesh bought it back, so it still exists because the kind of like put the money into us to incorporate it into their business. Just didn't do a great job incorporating it, and didn't actually saw the opportunity to like restart it over again and take it over, and now it's doing really well. It's winning a bunch of awards again, so it's cool to see how you can actually recycle a business. And that's like multiple times. I mean, Boloco, if you guys know Boloco, I mean, that John Pepper did the exact same thing. You know, he built the business up, raised a bunch of capital, disagreed with the VCs, got kicked out of his own company, then the company tanked, then he came back in, bought it for pennies on the dollar. Now it still exists with like 10 locations in Boston. So that's a frequent story, is having the right people backing you. All too often it's like easy to take capital from wherever you can get it, but in reality you got to remember that whoever's giving you money, they're going to want to have a say in what you do with their money, and if you don't agree, like how you work through that is really important. When things are great, it's like marriage or anything in life. When things are going well, everyone's happy, there's no issues, but it's when shit hits the fan, how are these people going to deal with it? And that's the kind of people you want to bring into your business. So yeah, anyway, the lighting company did well. So much of it was just us, like I said, working like animals around the clock. We had a schedule where I would go 3 days in a row without sleeping, then I'd sleep a whole day, then he would go 2 or 3 days, sleep a whole day, and we'd just rotate, because we were international, so we had to cover all the different time zones, and we had calculated, I think it was every 2 or 4 hours that we slept, we fell behind 2 days because of the delays in communication at each of those time zones, and by the time to get the relayed info back. So like we were stressed. So the stress was what was keeping us up, because we knew, shit, if I don't stay up to make it through the next 2 relays of communication, like I'm not going to find out the answer to this until 2 days from now, and then that's going to mean the next thing that I need to do is another 2 days, and so on and so forth. From there, invested in a couple companies, so it was nice to have an exit. I was 21, so kind of made my first millions early on, which was great. I mean, it set you up for options, I'd say, moving forward. Not necessarily success, but just options. I also you realize too that like money and the things it buys are cool and exciting, but literally for like the shortest period of time. Because like once you have them, like whether you bought a brand new car and it's a Ferrari or it's just a Honda, like that feeling of buying that brand new car and being excited about it lasts for however many months. Whether it's a Honda or a Ferrari, it lasts exactly the same period of time. Like it doesn't stay more exciting for longer. It just becomes another vehicle to get you from point A to point B. Yes, it's nice to look at, but you start realizing you can't fill kind of like the passion I think most of you guys probably have while you're here in ETower is this like wanting to build and create and develop and make a mark and a name for yourself and like change things, change the world, change an industry. Once you do or complete some of that success and you stop, you're gonna long for more. And you'll also find too, when you transition businesses, if you start having a business that's really successful, maybe it doesn't happen to you, but for me, my name was synonymous with ThinkLight. So my life was synonymous with ThinkLight. So when you ask me, how are you doing? First thing I tell you is how my company's doing and what's going on, because that's a cool, exciting thing. You ask me what's going on with my company, I tell you about my company. Now when that company you don't have anymore, what do you talk about? It's like I relate it to my friends who have 9 to 5s. They talk about sports and other things, but I could care less the statistics of a football player because it's not my life and it's not impacting me in any way. It's entertainment. I care about things I'm building, and so after ThinkLight, I remember people asking me oh hey, what's going on? What are you up to? And I'd be it's on vacation and it was beautiful and nice out, but whether you go to one island or another, it's all the same story. It's beautiful and it's nice out, and oh, any new car lately? And they're yeah, and but you're not as excited about it. Oh, I'll take you on a ride sometime. So I found I felt like I lost my identity, and it's worse. It gets amplified. You guys, your friends are entrepreneurs, so think about the conversations you have with your friends. They're going to be telling you about their companies and all the cool things, highs and lows that they're having, and you're going to get to be that guy who has nothing to relate to or bring to the table, or girl, right? oh, like, that's awesome, I'm like so glad to hear that. And like, you have nothing to be like, well, we just did this, or like, have you tried that? Like, what's cool about having those conversations is bouncing ideas back and forth, and when you're out of it, you just feel like, I don't know, I felt like I lost a big part of me. So you fill that void, not with things, because that didn't work, but with like starting another thing. So for me, that other thing was solve the problem we had at ThinkLight, which is our accounting not being able to keep up. So I invested in a small bookkeeping company. It was like 6 people. Joined as the managing director of the company, and we grew from like 6 to about 40 people over the next 3 years. And the cool thing was like, my thought was, I bet I could take like a lot of the systems and the automation we were building, we had built with ThinkLight, like decision trees, and apply it to accounting rules and policies. What I realized was like trying to write policies to mimic how you do something or someone else does something, it creates this like crazy tree, because every person has like their own way of doing it, the decisions and like how they approach it or which step they want to do first, like creates a whole bunch of like if this then that statements, and that tree just becomes like unbearable after a certain point to like automate more, and so you kind of reach the limits. And so along the way, like, we had this great business that's going well. I got married maybe like 2 years prior or a year prior, and what's funny is like I constantly throw my wife on this roller coaster. So like things are great, like got all this extra capital, like chill, like time to like relax, plan life or enjoy it, and then it's like, all right, I got this new venture and going all in and putting all our money into it, and working around the clock, and because it goes from like, all right, I can start pulling like a 10-hour work day, like maybe an 8-hour on occasion. I can take a day off here and there. I can actually enjoy a weekend from time to time, to like, all right, I'm back in the grind of like 7 days a week. Like today, I've been up since 1:30 a.m. So, and I'm trying to get myself back on a sleep from 10 to 3 a.m. schedule. Reason being is you do that, by 4 you should be behind a computer. From 4 to 12, you just got an 8-hour work day in. Then you can go from 12 to 8, get another 8-hour work day in, and then you can have 2 hours of chill and go back to sleep. And once again, I will beat you by outworking you. So I still believe in it to this day. But yeah, I put my wife on this roller coaster where I do that, and then things start getting like chill, like company's profitable, making money. And then I'm like, all right, selling, gonna go start this thing called Botkeeper. And yeah, like we thought about having kids, but like, gonna put that on the back burner. Let's get a puppy, and that buys you 2 years. Just as that, like, life secret. So anyone's like significant other starts talking kids, buy a puppy. You just bought yourself 2 years. So yeah, I basically am like, I got this idea that's gonna be like a robot bookkeeper. It's gonna take like trying to do a technology-enabled accounting service to a whole nother level, and instead of doing top-down automation, we're gonna use machine learning, which was like starting to take off, to understand the data point that comes in. So like a transaction on a credit card, bank account, payroll entry, a receipt that you scan, understand what that thing is, and then using that understanding that is had via machine learning, then kick off the workflows to do the thing with it. Because when you approach it from that standard, the tree is like, it's bottom up, but it's a lot more narrow. So it's a lot easier to manage, because you now know what this item is, and if you know what it is, then you know how to treat it as an accounting rule and policy. There's no variations. So we launched it. I called what's cool too, so like get out and network, as I had mentioned, really get out and network. And I had like, my saying is, you go 1,000 places 1,000 times, one of them is the right time, the right place at the right time. If you meet a lot of people, you just never know how that translates. So like VC connections to different industries, like on our board is the founder of the North Face. You guys probably know that company or wear their material. And I only know Hap, not because of family, friend, or any connection like that. Literally went to a conference that he was speaking at. The end of the conference, like, I think I had him sign a book or whatever, and like, thanked him. And then we were catching Ubers at about the same time, he got into mine accidentally. Would like email him from time to time, give him updates, and then he emailed me and was like, hey, I'm about to like publish this book. Any chance you'd mind reading through the rough draft? Let me know what you think. And I was like, sure. And so he sent me like this first copy of it, or pre-published copy. I read through it, made a bunch of notes, marked it up, sent him back all the notes and commentary, and like, you know, he thanked me, sent me like the first published copy, like, you know, a nice like note and signed, and then literally we just kind of like had this dynamic where when I said, you know, hey, you know, I'm sure a lot of people ask you to be on their board, but we'd love for you to be on mine. What do you think? He's like, Enrico, I wouldn't be hanging out with you if I didn't respect you as an individual and really think you were a bright guy. And you'll find most VCs, they don't bet on the product. They bet entirely on the people. But the way they measure that person's like work ethic and performance and execution is how far they can progress a product at early stages. So metrics do matter, but like having the perfect product doesn't matter. Being able to show that you can get sales on not the perfect product, and being able to show that you can like get smart people to come like take little or no pay and build this out with you and put like their jobs and careers and lives on hold to work with you and see this as that like you're a leader and you can attract talent and motivate and inspire people. So, you know, anyway, have joined our board. But that's just like one instance of me getting to meet people, because Dinesh and I we went to all these lighting conferences. Like we were going to like go to Canada to a lighting conference. We'd go to these like facilities manager conventions, and we get free tickets. Like when you're a student, it's like free tickets for students almost to every conference. And we just go there and just network with people and get to know a whole bunch of people. And those relationships came in really handy, because as old as the saying is, it's literally who you know, not what you know. And I don't claim to be the smartest person. I just like I said, work hard, meet a lot of people, and then try to remember who I know that can help me out in what situations and how I can help them out. You know, if they reach out, I always try to like, you know, lend a helping hand. But yeah, so we started this thing called Botkeeper. Once again, I was like, hey honey, you know, like things are getting comfortable, like not gonna be the case for the next few years. We ended up going through like a whole lawsuit and everything for like the business, so had that, which was a lot of fun. Like moved a couple times in the meantime, so like lots of craziness going on. But when I was like starting it, I reached out to a guy named Louis, who just like through networking, I knew he knew everyone. He just like, I didn't know him, and then all of a sudden he was literally at all the events I was going to, knew all of my friends. Now all my friends are inviting him to hang out with me and them, and I was like, all right, I guess you can be my friend too. And then we ended up actually becoming like good friends, and like he's just natural. Like people like joke and say he's like the mayor of Boston, because he just knows everyone. Everyone loves him. Like you meet him, you trust him immediately, and he'll go out of his way to like help you out. I can't tell you how many people like crashed or slept on his couch like in hard times or like in between moves and stuff. Like he's that kind of guy. Or he'd like help you move. Like literally when he's like, oh, you're moving, like want me to help you out? Like he's actually offering to help you out and like show up, not just like saying that to be nice. So reached out to him, like he quit his job, jumped on board. Like once again, shows that I could lead or inspire people. More so like he watched how I acted and performed like over the last few years, the last few ventures. It's like, I'm in, I'll bet on this guy. Next call was easy, it was my sister. So she worked with me on my last venture, really smart, taught herself how to code, like great eye for design, marketing. Called her to take over marketing on our website, and then called this guy who had met through after ThinkLight, started working at a company called Integration Partners, like helping build out like their BD. And it was like not like it was like a part-time sort of thing, but in the part-time, like I would occasionally run into this guy there who was like interning, and I would never do lunches, so like I usually skip lunch right at my desk. And I think I was like one time I decided to have like a lunch, and I see him and he's like, you work here? And I'm like, yeah, for like a while now. And we just hit it off and I stayed in touch. He was an accountant. He just always struck me as like a very entrepreneurial like accountant, which is like I don't know, a hyperbole from as far as like, but Andy like is probably the most risk friendly, like entrepreneurial minded, like, I mean, case in point, he gets a job at E&Y, and I think he quit in 3 months to like go start his own tax practice. Like, he's that kind of guy. It's like, I can do this myself. So we called him. We hadn't spoken for 2 years or 3 years, but he was like, this sounds cool. Let's meet on Sunday. We met at like 5 a.m. at a Starbucks Sunday. Because it was his fault. So he said, I'll meet you there. How early you want to do? I said, like, I'm down to go like really early so you can get a lot done. He's like, yeah, as early as you want. So I said 5 a.m. And he was like, sure. So we got there like right as Starbucks opened, or I was like there, and he like walked in. It was a long story too. I ended up having to like ride my bike there because like the subway wasn't running at those hours. So yeah, so we joke about that to this day, that I still beat him there, even though like I had to ride from like Cambridge to like Alewife. I had bike there or whatever to like make it. But anyway, so we meet up, like pitch him on the idea. He's all in, and then so the four of us basically start this thing, and then we start bringing in other people. It's literally like our CTO, this guy Justin. I met him at Forbes 30 Under 30 one time. Like, asked him a bunch of questions about what he did. Took his business card, wrote on it "Future CTO," put it in my wallet, kept it for a year, a little bit more. Called him. He'll tell you, like, when I called him, I was like, hey, like, got this idea. I think you'd be great to like head up our tech. And he's like, who are you again? But it's like literally like you gotta remember the people you know. I mean, they're gonna be so instrumental moving forward. And then kind of the rest is history. We started like building this business. Hired the first few people, built a really shitty product. And by shitty, it was just like it was email only interface, but it like did the work. It would like do your bookkeeping. You just didn't have anything sleek or sexy to look at. Then we built the interface. Then we like raised money. We went out. We met a bunch of different VCs. Key to raising. So I won't like spend too much time on this. Just look up Enrico, how I raised it. Literally, the whole secrets are there. Like, secrets in the sense that like even our VCs were like, I mean, I knew you did some of this stuff, or I thought, but like at least you didn't go too far. So like little things to do are like you have total control over a forecast. Can be a reality. You can be seen as like the person who can predict the future, so long as you do predict the future and you hit the numbers that you say you're going to hit. Now, how do you do that? Well, you either sandbag or like hold data to yourself that you know is going to allow you to hit those numbers, or you like know in advance that, hey, I can do like a round of upgrades on our current clients that I've been holding off on doing. That's going to boost it to this. We've got a new product, like we're releasing this new efficiency or this new component of our product that's going to boost efficiency and boost margins. So we're going to watch margins go like this. Like, there are ways to basically start the conversations, hold some information aside so that basically you can say, I'm going to go from here to here, and you can hit those numbers like spot on. And that just makes like the next number that you set like far more believable, because most people, the VC process, the shortest time it'll ever take you to raise is about 60 days. We did that. We did 65 days on this most recent $18 million round. That's like record setting. Like, you should expect 6 months. Now, why you want to condense it? Because you can be Confucius and predict the future in short periods of time. You can't predict it in long periods of time. There are too many moving dynamics. So the faster you can, the tighter raise process you can run, things that you can kind of keep in your back pocket, and call it like chess moves you can make that you've already planned, and you hope that things work out, but you've got a higher probability of them happening. And then condensing the whole process. So like fundraising shouldn't be a part-time thing. It shouldn't be like we're gonna start doing it on the side. Literally stop everything you're doing. Let your inbox go to like 2,000. Like, ignore everyone other than VCs. So you just scan your inbox, you reply to VCs the second they come in. So you're super attentive and responsive. When they ask for financials, number one thing you could fail on, when they ask for numbers and metrics, especially financials, you should be able to return them to them in like 30 minutes or an hour max. So from the time that you send that email. Why? Because that tells them you run a tight ship, you know your numbers, you know your metrics, things are in order. It takes you multiple hours or days. It says you had to do cleanup and fix things or put financials together now that they're asking. What that says is they're going to totally doubt your numbers, whereas if you send it right away, they're going to assume they're accurate. Now they better be accurate, because then otherwise you can't do Confucius and predict the future. And then, like when you're doing it, like I said, like full time. I mean, we had 5-6 meetings a day, and there's a whole, like, once again, watch that video. It tells you how to like line up all the meetings, who to reach out to, how to like structure it, how to get multiple people to introduce you to the same person. So it seems that like, wow, like everyone's talking about this company. Lots of like cute little tricks you can do. But a great trick is not a trick. It's having your days packed with VC meetings, so that when your 1 hour VC meeting that you scheduled wants to run an extra 15 or 20 minutes, and the VCs think that like, obviously he's going to spend the extra 15, 20 minutes with me, and you tell them, sorry, I have another meeting I have to get to, and then they like balk at you being like, what's the other meeting? Like, that would be more important than me. And you're like, oh, I'm meeting with another VC. And then they ask you like who it is, and you actually like spout out a name of like a VC that they know. Instantly FOMO. So they start worrying that like, oh shit, like Botkeepers and all these other conversations. All that does, like, it's so important to instill FOMO, because it forces someone to make a decision quick. Time is in the advantage of the VC. The longer your investment process goes, the more data points they get to see, the more they get to see you miss metrics or numbers or fail or have something. You're going to miss product shipping dates or time. Like dev, things will break. You're going to lose a client or two. It's going to happen at the worst possible time. Clients that you thought were going to come in this month won't, because that always happens. They kick out and push to another month. And all you're doing is you're allowing enough time to go by that your mistakes will be like exemplified, just because you're under a microscope during that. But if you condense it, you basically can minimize, or like I said, predict the future for that short period of time and hit what you said you're going to hit. So anyway, we raised our seed round. We were really particular about who we went with. We ended up having like multiple offers, which was great. We also did a lot of like networking. We got a lot of interest to other VCs. We got VCs to introduce us to their portfolio companies. Great way to get more clients is to tell the VC, hey, like best way for you to like test our product or see if it works is get feedback from your portfolio. Make some intros. We'll do a demo. They'll tell you if they like it. Now, if you're good at selling, you'll convert a demo into a sale. Now your revenue is going up, which is like going to help you out for that next VC meeting that you have and help your predicted future occur. It also means that more companies are using you and talking about you, and Boston loves to syndicate deals, so they love to like ask other VCs. So the more portfolio companies you're doing work for, the better. But when it comes to picking your VC, back to what I was saying like earlier, super important you pick the right one. So we chose to go with Ignition Partners. They're in Seattle. John Connors, who's like the founding partner of that firm, was the CFO and CIO of Microsoft. So talk about a guy like new our space, new tech, new finance. Other individuals there were like on the board of Bill.com and other like accounting products, new people that they could make one introduction and they would like care about what we were doing. So bringing way more to the table than the money. But then two, there were a couple other things like Kellen, who's taking lead on our deal, was a principal at the time, but we had a feeling that like he was probably going to be partner. You could just tell this guy works his ass off, didn't sleep, was always like go, 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 go. And we knew if we were his first deal, we'd get a lot of love and attention. And it was as important that we succeed for his career to succeed, right? So like if his first deal tanks it or fails, like it's pretty much gonna like blacklist him like moving forward. But if his first deal crushes, he's set for life. So we took that in consideration. We ended up doing actually a lower valuation with Ignition. So once again, right people, totally way more important than higher valuations. And they proved to be so monumental. I mean, Kellen texts, emails all the time, not how are things, what can I do for you, what can I do for you. I was thinking about introducing you to this guy, can I connect you to that guy, how can I help you here, let me introduce you to our client. Hey, do you have marketing materials? You don't have marketing materials, I'll put 2 interns on making marketing materials for you. hey, I'm gonna have these 2 people attend some events on your behalf. I'm gonna reach out to these people and see what they think. Like literally all the time helping us out. And then when it came to our next raise, when you have someone that's that dedicated, he went out and reached out to a bunch of VCs to make intros. And so when one VC's saying, hey, you guys should like take a look at Botkeeper, and that VC is not known to be a dick, like huge, super important. The best feedback we kept getting, and like why I think people were really excited to do our investment, is so many of the VC firms you talk to, the partners had sat on boards with Ignition people, and they were like, John is freaking incredible, Nick, Bill, these guys are, Bill is incredible, Bob, like just awesome team, people knew them, had sat on boards with them, and were like, yeah, if they're on your board, I would enjoy being on your board, like this isn't gonna be an issue. Super important, because they care about the dynamic there, and that they're not gonna be butting heads with someone, and that the other person is like easy to work with. So that definitely helped us raise our round, and then we did my process again, lined everyone up, pretty much didn't sleep. And like it's tougher when you're doing your next round, because now your business depends on capital. So like capital becomes heroin, where you need it and you need more of it to like keep growing faster, and you lose efficiency with increased growth. So faster you want to grow, the more money you have to spend per dollar you're going to acquire. There's like, you try to strike like a sweet spot, and we're always like working to optimize that, but when you know that you've got this much more runway and your company needs this much capital every single month to operate, and like at this date you're out, like imagine the stress, especially when I think at that time we employed 60 or 80 people, I think 60 people. So, and some of those people were like people I knew, connections, right? Like I reached out to my network when I was trying to find top people, and reached out, and they introduced me to top people, and so I had friends, a family of other people, working, and the thought that like, you can't go and say like, hey, like potentially in 3 months you're not gonna have a job, and like expect them to like keep working their ass off. So the whole time you're like, oh, things are going great, like, money's on its way, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, fuck, like if we don't get this round, like everyone's literally screwed. And so it was like, super stressful, like I didn't sleep a lot, but we got it done. We had another really successful raise. We had like 6 term sheets that for lead, and then another 6 or 7 for participation. And we ended up convincing 2 of the leads that wanted to do the whole round to basically, or one of them to not do the whole round, Graycroft, and allow us to bring in Google as the other lead. And that was really important for us. Graycroft's got a big name in terms of, you guys may not know them, but they got a huge name in terms of like investing in solid businesses, like for the business model work. So like Venmo and Bird and Boxed and Bambi. I mean, there's just like a number of these companies that they've done that have just crushed. And Google doesn't have that reputation, but Google has a reputation of investing in really cool, like future changing tech, and they hope that like the business model gets figured out. So we figured if we got like the great business model investor and a tech guy came together, like that would be perfect for us in terms of like what the advice that we're looking for, but also would signal to the market that we've got some of the best tech and a really sound business model. And then here we are today, like large company, growing all the time, bringing in. The next thing VCs now are looking at measuring me on is how well I can attract like that next tier talent. So we brought on the CRO, Chris Mull. He was like the VP of sales at Salesforce, took them from millions to public, went over to Informatica, took them from 0 to public, went over to Scavenger, which became Level Up, which got acquired for $400 million by Grubhub. Then Rights Media got acquired by Yahoo, then JW Player, a couple million to 50 in a couple years. So a guy who crushes, and to be able to convince that guy that like you're gonna bet the next 5 years of your life career on Botkeeper, because this is gonna be your next public company. They were looking to see that like I could do that. Now the thing I gotta find is like a really solid, probably CTO or VP of engineering, and then my job's done. and sit back for the rest of the night. No, there's always plenty of things to do. But yeah, so that's the journey. That's where I am today. What can I tell you? Can I answer questions?
Yeah, we'll take probably 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it. Got a lot of value out of your talk, so really appreciate that. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more on like acquiring so much success at a very young age. I'm really hopeful that a lot of the people in the audience will experience that as well. So I'm wondering if maybe you can just give some pointers and kind of how you dealt with it, and how it changed your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost funny, like, to, I guess, give you guys advice on what to do when you're super successful. I'd rather give you advice on how to be super successful, because the reality is, like, such a small percentage of you will actually do that. Like, it's just the statistics. So, and look, if you look at everyone in this room, just think there's probably going to be, like, maybe because this is ETower, like 3 or 4 of you that will get to, like, make $1 million in your bank account, not just in the revenue, by the time you graduate. Like, so you guys are competing against each other for that title. But I mean, the thing with the success is, like I said, I mean, I don't know, your head's down and you're just like working so hard at building this thing. And like all along, like as a kid growing up, you might have had like aspirations to like buy this car, own that, build that house, like do this, do that. But like you quickly realize, I mean, like for instance, if you could go out to like the nicest place for dinner every single day, and it's just like another day, and like what do you do then? And what's going to be new or groundbreaking? And you like there is literally nothing other than starting a company or an organization and making an impact at that level that will ever measure or compare to anything you can buy or do as a normal citizen. And I was like literally like join the military. Like that's gonna get you like way closer to that high and the rush and the lows and the adrenaline. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you gotta be an adrenaline junkie, because it's like, for me, like I hit a high and then it's like I'm just craving a next high. And like right now, like we're growing at a nice pace, but it's not exciting to me. Like unless we start growing at an even faster clip. It's like you make the first $1 million in revenue and you're like excited for literally, like you're working so hard to get there and you're excited for, like you celebrate for like 30 minutes and then you set your eyes on making 3 more. And like when 3 comes, like you don't even celebrate. It's like, how do I get to 8 or 10? So I don't know, I'd say figure out, if you haven't done this already, the best advice I can say is figure out what you're actually passionate about and what actually drives you. And remember that what you think, if it's possession oriented or it's like status oriented or some amount of money or whatever, like when you get it, it's not gonna actually be the thing. And you're gonna be left with, yes, money to go on vacation, buy cars and all that stuff. It's not bad, it's like great, makes life easy. But that's the problem. It's life is easy. It's like playing a video game with all the cheats, and it just is like old. Except unlike a video game with all the cheats, like you can actually swap out for another game and like do something else cool. Like you can't swap out life. So it literally just gets like, not to be depressing, but like boring. So you will jump back into the next thing, and just the quicker you realize what you're actually chasing, the depression is like, not that I've never gone through like depression in like the sense that I know some people who have, but I definitely went through some form of depression with each exit, and like as I entered the like next business. So much of me entering another business or starting another thing was filling that void or gap. And I realized for me, it's like, I just don't want to die and have it be like not matter. So if I die in like 2 or 3 generations from now, no one knew I existed, or like the impact wasn't still residing. Like I want to be in the textbook where it was such a big impact it still felt today. Otherwise, it's like, why am I here? That's my thing. So.
Thank you for that.
No problem. Any other questions?
I have one. So when you first integrated machine learning, and was it just the original 2 co-founders at that point, or had you built out a team?
So like the first components of Botkeeper were more like decision tree. Like, so I was a quant major at Babson,
Okay.
ironically. And a lot of what like that is just is like linear regression, it's heavy statistics, it's what a lot of people tout as machine learning. Like you could count linear regression as quasi-machine, it's not really, but we were doing that with decision trees and like just rules-based if-then statements to like execute actions. Then when I knew we were gonna be, like we got the term sheet, or we were close to it, that's when I reached out to Justin. It was like, hey man, I need you to take like this shoestring paperclip bubblegum thing I built and like make it real hardcore tech and take it to that next level, because it needs to scale. Like right now this scales well, but like we're also having to like do a lot of like finagling behind the scenes, and that's just not going to be practical if we're going from, it's practical going from 30 to 100, but like in clients, this last year we went from 160 to 1,000 clients, so like just totally different leaps and bounds. So yeah, Justin came in, and I chose him not because he's not the best coder on our team. Like actually, like someone to like lead dev, it depends on what you're looking for, but I wanted someone who was really great at like, he could understand what I wanted to do. He wouldn't like know me to death. He'd more yes me, like, yes, I'll make that happen. And then he would go to work like figuring out how to make it happen and like pull the all-nighters to like will it to be. And he was really good at, he's like a great hacker. So really good at taking a concept, an idea, and like some compartmentalization of what this thing should be, and then building, like getting so quickly to prototype MVP, because once you can get something to like that stage and show that it can be done and it can work, the smart engineers are able to like take that and believe that it's true, and then go and like figure out how to make it more scalable and more robust and sound. So he's been, yeah, phenomenal at getting us to this point.
Anyone else before we move on to asks?
It's kind of a weird question, but what was your childhood like going into like high school as well? And how do you think that set you, like how did you get into Babson, why did you pick Babson, and how do you think that set you up for where you are now?
So I grew up out in the boonies, in this little town called West Brookfield. If you know Sturbridge, Old Sturbridge Village, or Worcester, go an hour plus west of Worcester. And you know, kind of grew up out in this like little hick town. But I always knew like I didn't want to have a job. Like I wanted to do my own thing, beat to my own drum, like for better, for worse actually. Like it was one of those things where like I hated like taking direction from others. It was like, let me figure it out. I'll trailblaze the path, even if it's not the most efficient one, but at least I'll learn along the way. So I'd sell candy bars. Like I was a kid selling candy bars at sports games. Like when I was like 12, I started buying gumball machines when I was like 13, putting them in locations, and then gumballs turned into vending machines. Then the money I made from that, I was able to buy landscaping equipment and truck by the time I was 16. Hired my friends to work for me doing that. And I think it was, you know, making like 20-ish grand, 16, 20 grand a year at like 15, 16, like passively kind of, which is a lot of money at that age. And then, and this is also a lot of money at that age, like I'm older than you guys, so it's like even more money then. Like minimum wage was $6, not 15. Puts it in perspective. So, which is crazy, I'm getting old. And then like, I knew I wanted to go into business. Like I just loved that, having my own thing, building, growing it. Like I love obsessing about the numbers and how I take it to the next thing. And all I knew is I always want to be number one at everything I did. I was competitive. I ski raced here. Babson, we were top 4 in the nation every year. I was on the tennis team too for a year, and then just couldn't do both, plus think light. But I needed to be number one. I had been in like sports teams and everything I did at high school, and that was my criteria. I wanted to go to the best business school. And then this guy, Casey Matthews, told me, he's like, have you looked at Babson? I was looking at like Harvard and Cornell and Yale and Brown, and like just thinking that like those are the names and number 1 schools. He goes, you should look at Babson. It's number 1 in the world for entrepreneurship. That's all I needed to know, and I was like, done, early decision, like in. And it was funny because my dad, like my grandfather started a supermarket in town, and like coolest thing about that was he built this thing that like a lot of people depended on for their livelihood, and he had like mini celebrity status. Like I would get pulled over by a cop for like speeding or like tail light or something, and they'd be like, Palmerino, oh, are you Henry's son? And it was funny because when I got into Babson, like Babson gave me like less of a scholarship and like financial aid than Bentley did, and so because I applied there early action, so it's Babson early decision, Bentley early action, and my dad like started basically hard negotiating. He called them like without me knowing, hard negotiating them like, irregardless of whether I signed an early decision thing, I'm going to Bentley because they're giving me more. But I was like, you can't do that. Like you signed this thing, then I get called like, hey, what's your dad doing? Like, you signed this thing saying you're coming, and I was like, Dad, I don't care. Like I don't care the money. Like I'm I ended up doing like student loans myself, and I was like, I'm going to Babson. Like I don't care if it costs more. So I just knew this was the right place for me. Does that answer?
Yeah, that's good. That's much.
Last one.
How did ETower play into your entire role? I know you've talked about Think Late and stuff, but how with these guys in the tower, and especially even after Babson, how has that played into your life and success?
ETower, I mean, like, I hope you guys do it the way I did it. Like, there was people out on, we used to have leather couches. We were out on these couches all the time, like 6, 8, 10 of us. Like we'd have the TV going, and we'd be out there like just like doing work or like putting something together, running ideas by each other. And it was constantly like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, like what do you think? And we'd be like, oh, I think that would work, but like this won't, like just constantly like tweaking or telling each other, like criticizing like the ideas and like bringing them to fruition. And then it would be like, well, hey, Steve, you've done so well with like getting traffic to your ATV site. Like how did you do that? What did you do? Like what works best? Like how did you like set up the ads campaigns, etc. And like so literally just it's like you hear about Y Combinator and you like Mass Challenge and stuff. Like the best incubator you're in is if you're like literally living 24/7 with those people. And these should be the people that you like celebrate Thanksgiving with. You like hang out with all day, like all night, you pitch ideas to, and you should just like, you only have 4 years here. Every day that goes by, and like you have 4 years, but like not even all 4, it's not full 4 years. You only have so much time to get a business. Now is when you do a business. Like if you can make your first business successful and make some money or like support you while you're in school, changes the rest of your life. Like my friends and I who like got our companies to a few million, people like even like Hanson who came in after me, he's got like you have the freedom to do whatever you want. You can travel, you can like it sustains you. You now don't have to work for anyone. Like it's so cool to just be your own boss and do your own thing. So I spent every waking minute with those people. I asked everything of them. When a few of us, our companies got to a point where we were like doing a few million, my junior year I moved out. We rented a house, converted it to like some office space, and then living, and then more office space. It was like a 3-story home, and like just, and then even then it was just all night. Like we hang out with people who are like you, and hang out with people who are smarter than you in certain things, and that's what's key. Other key thing is like when you start a company, don't start a company by yourself. Like, if anyone here is like, I've got this company, and like who's the founders or who's the executive team, and you're like, it's me. Like being a solopreneur is not a good thing. It's actually like the worst thing you could do, because every minute that you're not selling and you're spending time building product is a minute that you're not selling and growing the business. And every minute that you spend selling or not building product is a minute that you're not doing marketing and design and making things look good. And every minute that you're doing that is a minute you're not operating or like looking at the finances and predicting and forecasting. So it is so like the failure rate of a solopreneur company is so high. Like you need a team because there's just way more to do than one person can ever do. And if you can have 4 people doing all these things who are good, don't work with your friends. Your close friends, the people you like and you hang out with outside of ETower all the time, like you'll hang out with ETower, but if you had like to call someone up to go party or do something, that's not who you probably want to start a business with, because they're probably just like you, have the same hobbies, the same skill set, and the same like strengths, which means it's just another you that's good at doing the thing you're good at doing, and now you guys are gonna conflict, and you're now also not good at doing the things like marketing or accounting or whatever it is that is being missed. So partner with people who are strong, that you like and you respect and like are intellectual and you enjoy hanging out with in a community, not people who are just like you. How does that impact my life outside of ETower? So in ETower, I was constantly challenged. I mean, I started like 6 or 7 companies while I was here. Key thing is don't start multiple. You're just basically setting yourself up for guaranteed failure. You can literally only do one thing well, one thing. Like, you want to be exceptional and do anything that's actually going to have meaning, make money, sustain you, support you, or have an impact on society. One thing. Like, 40 hours a week is not enough. 80 hours a week maybe is getting close. 90, 100 hours a week is how you make it successful. And if you're doing 100 hours a week on one thing, where do you find the time to do anything else? You don't even have time for family and friends. So I didn't live college life when I was in Babson. I just worked. So I've made sacrifices. I regret some of them, but I'm happy for where I am. That said, out of school, because I was so bonded, because I worked with these people around the clock, because I lived by their side, because we slept on the couches together, because we literally were going through all the hardships, we would like not go back home. Like, we'd choose to like stay here or work together. These are like my closest friends, and they're literally my family. So I hang out with there's like 6 people who are across California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, in New York, who I see at least quarterly, all together at the same time. And then probably monthly, maybe even multiple times in a month, I see other people who I hung out with, or I was in ETower with. So, and it's great because like we're all still the same people. So when I hang out with Chris Jacobs, like he's telling me about his venture, honest discounts, and like we're comparing notes, and he's like I'm telling him about what I'm doing, and we're like congratulating and making introductions. Like, it's just we can be apart for a while and then you plug right back in through the like same mindset. Same thing with like Austin Conti and Jerry Praisman and Tiff Lynn. I mean, these are just like some of my close, like literally family. Like, we're all in each other's weddings. Like, we all can't wait to see each other's kids. I mean, it's cool. And that, I mean, changes your whole life. I mean, literally all the people like I hang out with and surround myself with are like super successful people, but super successful self-made, which is totally different. Like, so it's funny, my wife, I mean, her best friends now are like, she's like, I don't know, like all your friends are like the coolest like people. They're all doing like this cool shit. Like they're friends with my parents. Like we're literally, like, when I say family, I mean, they like call it like, hey, like where's Mish? Or like they'll call my mom and be like, hey, like Mish is like my mom's like, you know, kind of nickname or whatever. And so like call her and be like, Mish, like what's up? And remember that time Enrico was hammered and we had to like carry him home? And like, I mean, they're those kind of people, and we all have like amazing stories. So yeah.
Cool, let's give Enrico a big round.